When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
This podcast brought to you by Ring. With Ring cameras, you can check on your pets to catch them in the act.
Izzy, drop that.
Or just keep them company.
Aw, I'll be home soon.
Make sure they're okay while you're away with Ring. Learn more at ring.com/pets.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
I think happy money creates a lot of impact. I think what we should try to do as entrepreneurs is not focus on the money, focus on the opportunity. The opportunity brings the money, and the money is just a result.
Are you ready to employ some baby money soldiers to help you generate massive wealth and success and legacy in your business and in your life? You're in luck, because today's guest is Gino Barbaro, and he is going to share with us how he has done that very thing. Moving from running a restaurant with his dad into building his own successful business as one half of Jake and Gino, in building multifamily real estate endeavors that have both blessed his family in the now and for years and years to come. If you're a parent, this is an episode you're absolutely going to enjoy and love, because when it comes to creating wealth, we know that one of the biggest motivators behind what we do, and as we're trying to build this income and create businesses and create generational success, is our families. We know that it is bigger than what we are here to do, and that we can create massive impact in the world and also within the walls of our home. So let's get ready to go into this episode with Gino Barbaro. Class is officially in session. It's great to have you on here, Gino. We're going to have such a great conversation today about finance, mindset of finance, growing a company, all of the good things. I have a feeling we're just going to let the conversation be exactly what our listeners need to hear today. So thanks for coming on and being willing to open up your brain, open up your heart, and just share the good stuff.
Kirsten, thank you. And there's two similarities that we have. The first thing is we called each other up this morning and decided to wear pink. I do not wear pink. I wore it just because I knew you were going to wear it, number one. And number two, we both homeschool our children. I think that's something that's very challenging.
Yeah.
It's one of the most rewarding things you'll ever do in your entire life, but it is one of the most difficult things, especially when you started it. Like, we started it over 20 years ago, and it was not the cool thing back then. Nowadays, you're a little cool. Back then, you're like, what are you doing?
Who are you? These are the weird kids.
Yeah, exactly.
I know.
Yes.
I've asked my mom that, like, did you ever even consider, it wasn't even on my radar to be homeschooled? And she was like, no, never even crossed my mind. It was just such a small subset of people who did that. And now it's, for multiple reasons, it's become so much more prevalent. And I'm glad that it's expanded because it makes it a little easier when we have community and a lot of resources available. So love that we're just on the same track with outfit choices, homeschool, parenting choices. It's going to be great.
Yes, I agree.
All right. So can you start giving us a little bit of background? You said you've homeschooled for 20 years. So you're at that stage where you probably have some adult children phasing into a new phase, but I want to hear a little bit about your journey as an entrepreneur and what that has looked like in building businesses.
So for me to give a real complete picture, I'd like to start out with my parents because I think it's important. My parents are both immigrants. They're both diligent savers. My dad started a restaurant when he came to this country about 10 years after he came here. So I was a little 8-year-old boy going to work with my dad at his restaurant. That's what I thought every kid did. I thought every kid went to work with their dad at the restaurant. And I grew up in the restaurant. And I was lucky, Kirsten, because for me, being able to work with your dad, being able to work with, I would consider him a mentor, being able to have fun and really learn the attributes of what it takes to be an entrepreneur, really hard work and really dedication and really willing to learn a craft. I learned that all through my dad. I went to college, hated the corporate world, decided to open a restaurant with him and my mom and my brother. I did that for about 15 years. 2007, my dad passed away. And that's when I started asking that tough question of, am I living his dream or am I living my dream? And if I have to be honest, I think I was living his dream more than mine. And I just loved being with him at the restaurant. I loved working with the family. I love that whole idea of community within the restaurant. Although I only had one, I couldn't scale it, didn't know how to. And in '08, the Great Recession comes, everything changes for me. And I decided to start mentoring. Decided to start mentoring in multifamily of all places. I had started investing in real estate. I didn't want to fix and flip. I wanted to buy apartments and do both at the same time because I wasn't ready to leave the restaurant. I thought I could never leave. I met my business partner, Jake, in 2009. We started partnering together in 2011 when he moved to Knoxville, Tennessee. And in 2013, we bought our first deal. And since then, we've been able to purchase almost 2,000 multifamily units in the last 10 years. We've created the Jake and Gino Education. We've created a couple other companies in the meanwhile, but that's how it all started from the humble beginnings of what I call myself the pizza guy, and my business partner, Jake, he was the drug rep.
I love that. It's giving a little bit of that like Gary Vaynerchuk backstory, like working with the parents in the business and then seeing that there's so much room for expansion and wanting to be loyal to that, but really being able to be loyal to the roots of learning entrepreneurship, learning how to have a business, learning how to build something that's meaningful and impactful. And I loved hearing how that even had its part in the type of business that you chose to pursue and not wanting to just get into the flip, but meaningful places for people, for families. So it sounds like the family element has continued through from beginning all the way until now. And so you mentioned there's education component in that. You've helped people also replicate your success and incorporate this business model for themselves. What did that look like? Was that more rewarding than even the actual business model that you were doing? Do you love the mentorship more so than anything?
For me, it was a journey. I started investing in 2011 and I was able to leave the restaurant in 2016. And I decided to leave New York. I left New York in 2017 and I was basically unemployable. I didn't have a job. So I'm like, what am I going to do next? I'd gone to life coaching school to become a certified professional coach, a life coach, and I loved it. I loved it, not from the fact that I wanted to coach people so much as I loved it, what it did for me. And I loved the ability for myself to receive personal development, to be able to learn how to ask myself questions and others questions, to be able to become a better listener, all the skills that you need to learn to become a really good coach. And I think to become a good leader. And I really gravitated towards that. In 2017, Jake and I wrote the book. We started the platform, Jake and Gino. We started teaching people how to buy multifamily. And I started gravitating towards that. But from there, it wasn't just the education. It was really complementary to what our business was. We were buying apartments. We were creating a brand behind the apartments. All of a sudden, real estate brokers saw us. Hey, Jake and Gino, I've got a deal for you. Or Jake and Gino, I want to invest money with you. So we had a syndication business at one point where we were raising capital from investors. But to me, it goes back to my dad. And I had learned this on a podcast with Renee Rodriguez. And why did I start the education? And I thought it was to monetize and to create this amazing brand. But when Renee told me to think back to my childhood, I remember the story. He says, think about a story or two because your values are shaped during your childhood. And I told him a story of when I was 9 years old. I went to the restaurant with my dad and there was bread in the front. We'd always walk in. There was nice French bread. We'd bring it back into the kitchen. My dad would have his chef knife. He'd be cutting up the chicken cutlets. He'd be teaching me how to cook. Everyone would call him Chef Vito. There was such a modicum of respect for my father and what he did. He loved what he did. And I loved being his son. And I loved the way he mentored me. And when this whole idea of Jake and Gino started, that was probably buried in my subconscious. And I love the idea of trying to mentor others. So when I look back at it, I realized that this whole Jake and Gino continuum is part of my father's legacy of him teaching me and being a mentor to everybody in that restaurant and to try to become the best version of himself every time he went to work. And that's what I wanted to emulate through the Jake and Gino education. And that's what I think I'm trying to emulate going forward as part of my legacy to my children, to show my children that I show up at work, to show my children that this community is created not just to impact our families, but the thousands of other families that have learned how to buy apartments through our community and just a community itself. Because right now, that's what I think people are craving. They're craving community. They're craving connection. And I think that's what our community, embodies.
Yeah. What a beautiful answer. And again, tying that back to your origin and to the culture that you saw. And I think this just goes to show the vehicle does matter to an extent, right? We want to tap into things that we resonate with and that we believe in. And it also doesn't matter to the extent that how those values align and who we are and what the impact is that we want to create. And there's so many different ways. I think the stage of life I'm at right now is realizing we can't really put labels on things like that's the right type of business, that's the wrong type of business. It's really just like, what kind of transformation are you going to create for people? in whatever vehicle that you choose. And I love hearing the fulfillment that you found where initially you thought that the mentoring was going to be to monetize. And I think I've had a similar journey towards like, oh, but the fulfillment in a different way is actually way more huge than the monetization factor. That's just a bonus. So really cool to hear your journey and your evolution. And now I want to get into some of these really cool things that you have done as of late, which is you're working on a second book right now. You've written another one. I've been able to glance through it. I'm excited to dive deep into it. So tell us a little bit about that.
It's interesting that you talk about the mentorship. And for me, the whole idea of mentorship, if anybody's out there, the pillars are learn, do, and teach. We learned how to invest in multifamily. I learned how to become a really good investor. I started doing it. And now I'm teaching it. And the amazing thing is once you start teaching it, you start learning new techniques. You start sharpening your saw, as Stephen Covey says, and then all of a sudden, you start becoming a better investor. And you start learning things from your students as well. And one of the first things that Jake and I did is when I've got the book here, I'll hold it up. It's called Baby Money Soldiers. And one day we're doing a podcast and he shoots out of his mouth, comes this, Jake, what is a baby money soldier? And I've got $1 here and I'll hold it up for everybody. This is what we call a baby money soldier. And this is what I try to teach my children. Every dollar that comes into your life is a baby money soldier. The way that your life and your financial future is dictated is how you use that baby money soldier, how it is allocated, right? You are the general of your financial battlefield. Once you understand that, things do change. Remember back in 07 and 08, I had not mentioned this, I was the victim back then. I was blaming everybody and everything. I read T. Harv Eker's book, The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, and I realized that my fruits were not in my roots. That's what T. Harv says in the book. My roots were really shallow. So hence, I had no fruits to show. Once I understood, and if hope you're listening to this, you understand that you are the general of your battlefield and you're able to deploy your resources in any fashion you want, things start to change. Then you have to start understanding how to deploy them. Like you had said, Kirsten, what vehicles would you like to deploy them in? If you're into crypto and you like crypto and you understand that model really well, start investing in crypto. I like multifamily. I think apartments are a basic human need. It's food, clothing, and apartments. We're always going to need a place to live. If you like office space, gravitate towards that. Just be an expert. So when you're looking at a baby money soldier, that dollar that comes in, your goal to be able to create long-term, what you want to call a generational wealth, is you have that dollar coming in. A part of it's going to be going out to operational expenses, right? OPEX, your house, your car, your clothes. Part of those dollars are going to luxuries. You're going on a vacation, you're buying a fancy car, you're buying jewelry. Understand, not here to judge you. Just understand that baby money soldier, that soldier will never be able to go out onto the battlefield to be able to invest. There's part of those baby money soldiers that you go out, you invest, you buy a property, you buy some stock, you're taking over that asset. Your goal is to be able to multiply and procreate those baby money soldiers so they can go out and take over more property, create more cash flow, and continue to redeploy those baby money soldiers. That's where people lose sight. They tend to kill their baby money soldiers too early. They don't reinvest in them, and they don't know how else to deploy them. There's so many other ways to deploy them. Let's talk about being charitable. Charitable is an incredible way to use your baby money soldiers because it is creating impact not only for yourself, but for others. Let's talk about putting some baby money soldiers in reserve. You can't let them all go out to fight because when an opportunity comes along, what happens? You have none to deploy. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about you have some on the battlefield and you have a stock or a house that you're losing money at. Do you want to sell that? Take some of those baby money soldiers off the table, even though some have been lost? See, understanding the rules is really important, but getting the fundamentals down and building that foundation is crucial to creating financial independence. Because I always like to say, people with financial intelligence can change the world for the better. Once you understand that you're not the victim, that you're responsible for all the dollars that come in, and you're the responsible on how you deploy them, everything changes.
Yeah, it feels energetically so much better too. And I've been going through some really powerful coaching on my end, and I'm with you, or the benefits just to my own personal self are far greater than what I initially thought I was going into this for. And I'm so excited to share that with other people. And one of those realizations to me has been this differentiation between being a creator of your life and being a victim in your life. And it is huge. And again, like I just said, hearing you say those words on the ability we have to deploy these money soldiers and even just be intentional about our life and our assets and everything that we're doing and feeling like the creator, energetically just feels different. So I hope everybody listening even feels that lightness and energy, even if you're listening to this months or years in the future. That's very real because it's truth, and truth resonates at a very high level of energy. So I just wanted to acknowledge I feel that in my bones. It's absolutely true. And so keep giving us more, because this is just absolutely my love language. Let's get into some of the nitty gritty. And I even want to come into this from maybe working on behalf of our listeners. What do you do when you have debt? You want to be wise with the money. We mentioned all the different ways we can deploy money soldiers. I think sometimes it can feel daunting when you're trying to maybe even start a business to solve financial problems, right? Like at the end of the day, you can be on either camp of this with Dave Ramsey, where it's just cut back. But at the end of the day, we need more money. We need more cash flow. How do we approach this? Building a business, building more income when we have that pressure of debt. Do you talk to that a little bit in the book, or have any insight on that?
I do, but just tell your children real simple.
As you guys know, we love investing in real estate. But until recently, it was always my thought and understanding that you needed quite a bit of capital to get into some of these funds. A lot of these commercial properties that you and I have invested in that have done so well for us, they have minimum investments. You need to be an accredited investor. There's just a lot of complexity to it. But then recently, I started to hear about this company called Fundrise. Buy low, sell high. It's a simple concept, but not necessarily an easy concept. But Fundrise has made it so much easier. Right now, with interest rates being what they are and the market being where it's at, is a great time to get into real estate. Prices are falling and properties are available at a discount, which means Fundrise believes now is the time to expand the Fundrise Flagship Fund's billion-dollar real estate portfolio.
You can add the Fundrise Flagship Fund to your portfolio in minutes by visiting fundrise.com/MU. That's FUNDRISE.com/MU. Carefully consider the investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the Fundrise Flagship Fund before investing. This and other information can be found in the fund's prospectus at fundrise.com/flagship. This is a paid advertisement.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
This is what's powerful for them. If they have $1, you want them to understand the difference between a need and a want. And I'll give you a perfect example of my son. This is how I taught my children. My son was 15 years old. He comes to me and goes, "Dad, I want an amplifier." I said, "Mike, you've got 3 amps. Why do you want to buy another one?" "This is a cool one. This one sounds better. This one's going to be better." I said, "Mike, how much does it cost?" He said, "Dad, it's $1,500. I said, "Michael, your net worth is $5,000 in the bank. I can't allow you as a parent, even though I love you, I don't want to be your friend right now. I have to set my foot down and say, you cannot buy that amplifier because I will not allow you to spend 25 to 30% of your net worth on that amp." He proceeded for the next 3 months to completely wear me down. I did not give up. I said, "Mike, if and when I find a deal, you can invest your $5,000 into the deal." And what did he end up doing? Thankfully, the Lord showed us a deal. We bought a deal that year. He put his $5,000. Fast forward to today. This was only 6 years ago. He is invested in 8 of our deals. He has 8 K1s as a 22-year-old. But the beautiful part about it is he is got skin in the game. We've been able to refinance these deals. Instead of him pulling the money out and spending it, he's not saying, "Dad, I don't need an amp." He's saying, "Dad, when's the next deal?" And all of a sudden, his financial intelligence has gone up dramatically. He's using words like owner draws. What is the NOI this month? Economic occupancy, physical occupancy. He's asking me to seller finance his deal, which means he wants to borrow money from me at a certain rate of it. I mean, that's a 22-year-old, which I don't know about you, but when I was 22 years old, I was not talking about seller financing. So the ability to be able to share with your children. And I like Dave Ramsey as the starting point. I think Dave Ramsey is really good. It's a great starting point. What I would want everyone to be doing as they're listening to this is to explore their relationship with money. I think Dave Ramsey is great for some people who don't understand their relationship with money. Cutting up credit cards, getting rid of debt, that works for some people because they have never sat down and done work on themselves. You need to ask yourself, why am I impulsively always spending money? I actually helped my son out with that. That is a lifelong lesson where for him, he went from becoming a consumer to becoming a producer. And I want him to consume through his production. If you can teach your children that and to be able to delay the gratification, You have won as a parent. It doesn't matter how much money they make. They will always be in control. They won't let emotions dictate how they spend money. Understanding your relationship. Go back once again into your childhood. When I was 9 and 10 years old, the words that I heard, we need to save for a rainy day, Gino. Mom, why for a rainy day? Why not for a sunny day? Just negative connotations. You have to be safe. We have to stay small. Hence, I had one restaurant for over 20 years. How is it that within 5 years, me and Jake owned 1,500 multifamily units? Changed the vocabulary, changed the limiting beliefs. I was an amazing saver. I just didn't understand how to actually enjoy spending money because I was never wired to do that. I lived in the scarcity mindset, which to me served me really well because I was able to save the money. But if I'm living in scarcity mindset and I want to hold my money, it's going to be a lot harder for me to deploy that money. So understanding the relationship you have with money is really important because you can become a millionaire. But what happens if you're reckless or you don't think you deserve it? You may hate yourself. You may end up losing that money subconsciously. You may be able to go out there and say, hey, I'm going to make this $1 million. I'm going to go out and risk it. You don't even know why. So understand, do that work on yourself. And for me, it was so helpful because I understood at that point when I started investing with Jake, save to buy that asset that will pay for the event. Instead of what I was taught as the middle class, save to put money into a vehicle for that event. Like you're saving for a 401k to save for retirement, or you're saving for a 529 to save for college, or you're saving money for retirement. No, I reverse engineered that. And I think every entrepreneur and every millionaire who wants to become a millionaire needs to save their money to put into an asset. That asset will pay for the event. And if I can explain a little bit further, my very first deal that I did with Jake, we still own that deal. That deal cash flows $8,000 every month. I own a third of the deal. So on average, between $2,000 and $3,000 a month is coming to me. When my daughter went to college 6 years ago, that asset paid all 4 years of college for her. I still own the asset. My son went to college for 4 years. I've paid all 4 years of college for him through that asset. I still own the asset. It's still producing cash flow for me. Now, my third child, my daughter, went to massage school. I got off easy, $8,000. Boom, 2 months of cash flow from that. But just to understand that I want you to start thinking about saving in a different fashion, not just saving for a rainy day, but saving to buy assets that will pay for those events. Because when that event is over, usually the savings is over. But those events have been over. I've continued the benefits of that asset through the principal pay down, through the cash flow, through the tax benefits, through the appreciation of the asset. That's the power that once you understand how to deploy your baby money soldiers, your financial picture will change completely.
Can you give us that on a very small scale? Because I know it can feel daunting when you're like, okay, so
Sure.
a big asset, maybe going to spend a lot of money on this, save for the asset. What are some small ways we can even teach our kids this? I know you already had the acumen over there where you were able to plug your son into buying a deal. What are some smaller scale
Yes.
versions of this that we can show that?
I mean, for me, smaller scale, start the stock market. Buy a stock, micro shares of stock that you can buy that have dividends pay monthly or quarterly. For you, if you're a parent or family, if you're buying a single family home and you're in a different market that's $50,000 or $60,000, go out and take a mortgage and just let them see that. Let them be part of that. I think it's really important. It's the conversation that you start having with the kids, taking their money. One of the worst things that I did with my children early on was I would take their money and say, hey, here's your birthday money. I'm going to take it. I'm going to save it for you. To a child, most children are like, that's a penalty. That's a punishment. When I get my money, I'm not going to give it to dad. I'm going to spend it right away. So you bring that into adulthood. Think about how that looks. It's really painful. So now what I do when they'll get $100, I'll literally put it in their bank account. I'll let them, and I'll give them the $100. So I'll double dip, and I'm able to do that. So now they have control of their money. They're able to do what they want with the money. They're able to spend it. They're able to save it. I'll put the 3-jar system where we have 3 clear jars, savings, spending, and I'll do charity. And they're able to dictate the money wherever they want to go. And what that does is it gives them options, and they have selections, and they're able, when they become adults, to make decisions. That's the problem with children growing up nowadays. They don't have the ability to make decisions because us as parents have dictated to them what to do from every age. So when they turn 18, they have no idea how to make a decision. And that's where I think we're failing as parents, is we are not setting up our children for success to be able to make decisions for themselves.
Yeah. So in your book that you have coming out pretty soon, and I don't want to be done with Little Money Soldiers or Baby Money Soldiers, because I think it's such a cool concept, and I know there's so much more juice we could pull out of that. But really, what's the approach of the next one? Because I know you mentioned before we started recording, there's 3 different stages, and based on maybe our age or stage of life, where we have different concerns and different things that we want to strengthen. So talk to us a little bit about that.
I had the privilege of interviewing a gentleman named Ken Honda. He wrote the book Happy Money. You look him up, amazing author, even more of an amazing dude. Japanese man who at the age of 29 left his job, retired, and stayed home to watch his child. To me, that's practically unheard of in Japanese culture. And when he did it 30-something years ago, it must have been even weirder. But it's like almost like homeschooling 20-something years ago. So we interviewed him about 3 months ago, and his Happy Money book sold over 8 million copies. And at the end of the interview, he said, you should write a book on happy money. You should write happy money, happy family, happy properties. And I'm like, you know what? I don't want to write a book on real estate again. I think I want to write one on happy money, happy family, and happy legacy. And for me, it really resonated because at this point in my life, getting to my 50s, having older kids, thinking about the legacy component is important, but also sharing thoughts about money with people. Because when you say happy money, people dictate, well, money can't make you happy. I can agree with you, but the experiences that money can bring happiness. I was in Ireland this past month in June with my wife. We were on vacation, spent a ton of money to go to this couples coaching retreat. Now, if I didn't have the money, I would not have been able to go. It's okay. I didn't have to go, but that money allowed me to really enjoy that experience. Looking at this studio right now, I've got electricity on. I used to really complain about the electricity bill, but now I look at that as happy money. I look at that as happy expense. I wouldn't be able to be speaking to you. I can think half the people on this planet don't have that ability, electricity, or they have rolling blackouts. So once you start shifting the way you look at things, everything starts to change. I think happy money is also the energy that's derived from it. When I was working at the restaurant, there were certain times when that money was unhappy. I had to work on the weekends. I had to work on the holidays. Now, as I've transitioned into multifamily and into this education community, to me, I love this stuff. All of a sudden, it's a lot different. Like you said, the energy's different. I think happy money creates a lot of impact. I think what we should try to do as entrepreneurs is not focus on the money, focus on the opportunity. The opportunity brings the money, and the money is just a result. And if you can look at money as the tool, that changes everything. And then when you look at the component of happy money, then you have a happy family and happy legacy. If we want to go into those two components, you can. But I just want to make people understand that I'm not saying money is going to make you happy, but it can bring joy to your life, and it can reduce a lot of the stress. When you've got 6 kids and you've got a bunch of dentist appointments, and I had perfect teeth, I had perfect eyes. All my kids need braces. They all need contacts. They all need glasses. That costs money. That was my stress. My idea of financial freedom was to be able to buy these things and not worry about it. I always said to myself, if I've got a problem and money solves that problem, then I really don't have a problem. That's what I wanted financial freedom and financial independence to look like. As you're listening to this, what do you want it to look like for yourself?
I love that perspective so much. And I'm with you on that. We all have different struggles in life. And I feel like money is one of the things that we make harder, and not to be insensitive to that, because there are so many circumstances that maybe you don't have control over, but you can definitely solve that one more than you can solve a health crisis or relationship crisis. And a lot of times that will feed into some of the resources that help you solve the other problems. So being able to pay for those medical expenses. Can we talk a little bit about, for our listeners, maybe somebody coming in? I know I always get super excited with these conversations. You can get very jazzed up and super just motivated to want to make this happen. If I'm early stages of building a business, or I'm in that stage where I have the young family, maybe where you started out, what are some steps or tips that you recommend to somebody just starting to make those decisions differently, or how to position and use the money that they do have differently, and even just the perspective change?
This is interesting. This may sound crazy, Kirsten, but I honestly think it's a lot easier to start now than it was 10 or 15 years ago. This was not possible back in 2010, or maybe it was, but it was prohibitively expensive. Not many people had it. No one knew what a virtual assistant was. No one knew what editing software was. All these platforms now, it's so much easier to put content on. It's easy to control. What I would say to you, and my biggest mistake that I had when I started with the restaurant business, was I created a business to provide for my family. That's not why you create a business. You create a business to provide for your customer. And once I understood that, and that's why I was a little frustrated with the restaurant for so many years. I didn't understand what my mission statement was. I didn't understand what my core values were. I didn't have any of those. And that was the big difference between myself back before I met Jake and then after I met Jake. Because to be able to scale an education company, and a multifamily portfolio, you need core values, you need a mission statement. So if you're out there starting, just get crystal clear on what kind of business you want to get into. Get crystal clear on the clients you want to serve. Get crystal clear on the values that you want to be able to present to your clients. And most importantly, the problems that you want to solve. It's pretty easy in the restaurant business. You're trying to solve somebody's hunger. You're trying to give them an experience. You're trying to make them feel welcome. At some point, I just got burned out. I got tired. I just didn't think it from that perspective. And I lost focus on what I was in business to do, is really to cater to the customer. And once I understood that with the Jake and Gino education and the community, and more importantly, with our multifamily, we have thousands of residents. We can't just focus on net operating income ourselves. We have to focus on trying to deliver superior customer service to those residents, whether you have one apartment unit or you have 1,000 apartment unit. That's, I think, really important. And if you're starting out, get clear on that, number one. Get clear on number two, the customers you're trying to serve. And I think number three, think about what your brand wants to emulate, what you want to really embrace. For us, if I had to say what Jake and Gino's brand was, it's entrepreneurs. We create multifamily entrepreneurs. That's what our slogan is, our catalyzing statement. But understanding who you're trying to serve, what problems you're trying to solve, and what your mission statement is, and try to think of what your core values are, what kind of culture, what kind of core values you want your company to uphold.
I love that. I think it's really easy, especially if you are, I don't want to use the word struggling, but if you're beginning, if you're trying to create that different lifestyle, you're moving from maybe traditional working a 9-to-5 job, having a very limiting income into expansion, then I think we do have a tendency to be like, what's the first thing I can do to get instead of what's the first thing I need to give? And if you can dial that in, then the beautiful thing that requires some faith and requires some trust. And if you're listening to this episode, you have to keep hearing it over and over again to believe it's true, because every successful entrepreneur will tell you this. There is a return on that investment. That is a natural outcome of investing into people and investing into positive experiences, is you will be provided for. Now, granted, you have to have some intentionality with that. You can't run a charity and expect to become a millionaire, but there is so much importance in what you just said with making sure that the values are there and the intention is there to serve, and then all of the other pieces seem to line up.
Kirsten, I think the other thing we need to mention is it's not easy. I don't think anybody should quit their W-2 jobs tomorrow and start a business. I hear people say burn the ships, maybe mentally burn the ships, because when I started investing with Jake in 2011, it took me 5 years before I was able to leave my restaurant business. And for me, it was a blessing in disguise. It was difficult. I worked a lot of hours, but at the same time, that restaurant, remember those baby money soldiers? Those baby money soldiers were paying for my lifestyle. They were paying for the bills. The real estate, the business that I was building on the side, they call it a side hustle now. I called it a second job back then. What did I know? I took that money from that side hustle and I invested it back into the business. I didn't kill those baby money soldiers. I kept investing it. So if it takes you a little bit longer, that's not a race. Take your time. And I was able to, like I said, use that W-2 income to be able to qualify for loans as well. And I was able to stabilize my family. I couldn't leave. I was not responsible enough to leave. And like I said, within 5 years of starting to invest with Jake, I was able to leave that job. So be methodical. Take your time. Every single day, you need to be reading something. I've read, I wouldn't want to say thousands of books, but I would say close to at least 2,000 books, because I've done at least 800 podcasts. And every podcast I've done, most of those authors have a book, and I need to read the book. You need to constantly be putting those messages in. I think, who said it best? I think Benjamin Hardy said, your input determines your outlook. If your input is great and it's positive, well, your outlook is going to be really great. So understand that you need to feed yourself positive messages, and you need to find people who are positive and people who are actually aspiring to what you want to do to be able to surround you, because that's important. Because there are times when it's difficult, and that's why it's called Jake and Gino. It's not just Gino. Gino tried to do it by himself years ago. That was a really difficult battle. But all of a sudden, when I found my partner and we were able to, work through it, talk 3-4 times a day, be able to share, be able to mastermind, be able to join forces, for me, it became a lot easier.
Wow, I love that. And really good insight for everybody in all of the different things that you touched on. It was really important to hear each one of those things. So can we continue forward into the new book? Because I know you said we can touch on the other things, happy money.
Sure.
Let's go into the next layer of that.
So the happy family component to me is challenging because I wasn't a really good dad in the beginning. I was overwhelmed. I didn't want 6 kids. I wanted 1 kid, maybe 2. And I honestly did not want to homeschool. That's the last thing I wanted to do. I was already a weirdo to begin with. My name is Gino. I own the restaurant, like pretty weird dude. And then we start homeschooling. And for me, looking back at it, it was really my wife. And I give her all the credit. And you have to work as a team. And I think this is, as being an entrepreneur, you need to look at your family as if you're running a business. Very similar skill sets. You need to have a mission statement for your family. You need to have rules, core values for your family. You want to build that culture for your family. You want to be able to focus on your family when you're there. You need to put a lot of energy and a lot of thought into the family. And I think we can't lose sight of that. I think us as entrepreneurs, sometimes we're saying we're doing this for the kids. Did you ever stop and ask your kids what they really want? I don't think they want dad working 15, 16 hours a day for the next 10 or 15 years, missing all their appointments. I don't think they want that. I think that's what you want. And there's nothing wrong with that. But let's just be clear. That doesn't lead to a happy family. I think what leads to a happy family and what leads to really happy, productive children, number one, for me, what I've learned is be transparent, be honest, and share struggles with your kids. And more importantly, when you make a mistake, say sorry, apologize. That took me a long time. And once again, going back into my childhood, I never really wanted to say sorry because I was always getting blamed for things that I didn't do. I was always getting punished from my parents. I was always getting made fun of. So it was really hard for me to say sorry, even though I was at fault a lot of times with my children. And still to this day, sometimes it bubbles up. So go back and take a look and see how your childhood was. And most of us say, yeah, it was great. And my childhood was great. But there were certain little traumas that happened. And I have to deal with that as an adult. So trying to raise my kids, having that open, honest communication. For us, it's a little bit more simple because they're home all the time. Like my 24-year-old, she was a missionary, went away for 2 years. Now she's back. She's 24 years old. She's going to massage school as well. She's at home. I think we've done a lot of good things and right things, but we've obviously fell short on that. And that transparency, honesty, openness, sometimes it was lacking. And the ability, once again, to say sorry was such a powerful thing. It just changed my relationship with my children. Being vulnerable with your kids is really important. And letting them know that you do make mistakes. So then when they become adults, they don't have to be the perfect child. Not everything has to be perfect because that may hold them back. Because if they're thinking to themselves, dad never made a mistake. Dad was great. He was an amazing investor. I don't know if I can live up to that. That's not the truth. That is definitely not the truth. I think one other thing I could share about having a happy family is just making sure that you spend time with every single one of your kids and that you dedicate time to what they want to do, not to what you want to do. I want to go hunting. I want to go shooting guns. I want to drive the golf cart. I want to do my things. Not all your kids want to do that. One of my kids loves going to our farm. We bought a farm about a year ago. She loves hanging out with the chickens. Not really thrilled about sitting in the chicken coop with chicken poop all over the place, but that's what she loves to do. And if she loves to do that, I want to be part of her life doing it. Another one loves to go fishing. Great, let's go fishing. So understand what they want to do, what their passions are. And I think the other thing, these things keep popping into my mind. As they get older, please don't tell them what they should do. That was another shortcoming that I had. As they're going to college, I was trying to lay out their life for what I thought they should do. You need to go to college. You need to get a degree. Then you need to go into school and you need to actually get a good job. No, you need to let them decide what they want. College isn't for everybody. Not all your kids are going to go to college, nor should they go to college. Let them pick what they want and do not criticize them and try to let them follow their own passion.
I think that's really important advice. And I love everything that you touched on because I think we have a tendency as parents to feel like we're further ahead in the journey. We have all the answers. We can tell you the best way to do it. And it's been a huge thing for me to step back and say, oh, I'm your parent, but I'm really just here to be a guide. I'm not here to control. And at the end of the day, you're your own individual. And even for me to know my place in how I can balance, I think this is a really big one for moms, especially because we're the ones at home with the kids mostly. And how do I balance these two things where I have my dreams, I have my goals and my vision, and I want to have a business. And then I also have these people that I need to provide for and incorporate into that life plan. And it's really been seeing that I need to be a model for that. Instead of a controller and a CEO and a boss of my home, I think there is so much similarity in managing a household and managing a business. And the most effective CEOs are really just there to be guides and make sure people are in the right places and that they see their vision and help facilitate that vision so that everybody can grow and everybody progresses together. So 100%.
Kirsten, it's interesting. Your journey is very similar to my wife's journey in that she wanted to do so much. And there was certain stages of her life when she was nursing 2 kids, had 4 loads of laundry a day. She couldn't possibly do what she's doing now. Those plans had to be put off for her, and that was fine for her. She wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, and then she decided, I think it was 4 years ago, she finally became a certified life coach. That's what she ended up wanting to do. And it's okay if you have to wait. And that's your journey. That's your part of your life. There's no timetable. There's no time period. Don't feel as if you're pressured if you're listening to that. I need to do that. I'm missing out. We call it values-based decision-making, understanding what your values are. And if you know what your values are and you're clear on them, you'll make your decision based on those values. And that's exactly what my wife did. She says, I can't take all these coaching clients. I can't write this book right now. I've got to tend to my children. And if I don't, something feels off. And when something feels off to you, you're not really living in alignment with your values.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that can cause a lot of frustration. And when you're not in that alignment, then it doesn't matter how much ambition you have and how much work you do. It's just not gonna line up. So I think making sure, I love that you said values-based decision making. That is really important. And I'm with you right there.
Whoa. Landing an account this big will totally change my landscaping business. It's going to mean hiring more guys and more equipment and new trucks for the new guys to drive the new equipment in. I don't know if I'm ready.
You can do this, and Ford Pro FinSimple can help. Our experts are ready to make growing pains less painful for your business with flexible financing solutions that meet the needs of your business today when you need them. Get started at fordpro.com/financing.
The IKEA Business Network is now open for small businesses and entrepreneurs. Join for free today to get access to interior design services to help you make the most of your workspace, employee well-being benefits to help you and your people grow, and amazing discounts on travel, insurance, and IKEA purchases, deliveries, and more. Take your small business to the next level when you sign up for the IKEA Business Network for free today by searching IKEA Business Network.
So the last facet of this is happy legacy. So obviously, like I mentioned, you've mentioned, you've got some grown children. You're nearing that tail end of raising this family. I don't know how young your youngest is or how old your youngest is, but talk to me a little bit about that, how you start to make that shift from you're almost in this survival mentality, building money, trying to master that, and then you're trying to find the balance of that with family. Now we're looking at the even bigger picture.
My youngest is going to be 10 years old this week, and I just can't, but it's amazing. No matter what stage of life you're in, whether you're just newly married, whether you're retiring, we all need an estate plan. 70% of adults in this country do not have an estate plan. That means that 100% do, because whether you have one or you don't, the state's going to dictate what's going to happen to you. When you're married and you start having children, at the very least, last will and testament, and make sure that your children have a guardian. If something happens to you, what happens to your children? Who takes care of your children? Do you want them to go into the system? This is something that's really difficult to do early on, but it's something that needs to be done. Healthcare proxy, what happens to you if you go on disability or something happens, you have to shut off machines. You want to be able to dictate that. You want to be able to have people to have that instant. That's you. You want to control. Don't leave it up to others. And as you start getting older on in life and you start accumulating assets, legacy to me comes in a couple of different components. You could talk about legacy wealth, which is great. You have all these assets. You want to be able to have been teaching your children about happy money and having a happy family so they're not entitled. So as they get older, they understand the value of money, and your legacy comes in 2 parts as far as I'm concerned. The wealth that you bestow upon them and your trusts and your future generations, and the values and all the lessons and all the learnings. And that's why I'm so proud of Jake and Gino, because my great-grandchildren can be watching videos of me teaching them about money. I want to transfer not just legacy wealth, but I want to teach them, transfer them legacy skills so they can go out and create the wealth themselves. So when you're starting out, as you're accumulating more assets, please go meet and visit with an asset protection attorney, whether you have 1 LLC or 5 LLCs. And right now I'm in the process of creating a spousal lifetime access trust, because I've created a sizable amount of money. I want to be able to transfer the money over to them. I've got my son who's 22 years old, who's a beneficiary. So I'm already talking to him about, hey, here are all the assets. I've got everything written down on a piece of paper for him. We keep buying deals, so I keep having to update it. So understanding that, hey, you're not just there just to shovel money to them. And that's what really upsets me with people who are really super wealthy and they say they have these entitled kids. I don't want to leave money to my children. They fail their children. because they haven't taught their children proper money. They haven't taught their children how to be stewards of that money. It's great to make all this money and you want to leave your kids in a better situation. I had a conversation with my daughter, Sophia, 2 weeks ago as I was writing the conclusion of the book. And I said, you're 18 years old. You became a massage therapist. You make $100 an hour. You work 10 hours a week. You make $1,000 a week. I know you want to be a stay-at-home mom. Wouldn't it be awesome if our trust was able to give you $3,000 to $4,000 a month to be able to pay those basic needs of life when you get married? Take care of your mortgage, take care of your car payment, possibly take care of some of those expenses with the expectation that you're going to stay home and you're going to raise the kids. Now, if you go out and buy jewelry or fancy vacations, that money gets cut off. That's what legacy is. I'm empowering my children and I'm giving her the opportunity to stay home with their kids at an early age. If you want to do that, then obviously trying to be fair with the other 5 and understanding and leaving the money in the trust to be able to grow, to be able to give it over to future generations, for them to be able to tap into the trust if they want to borrow money from the trust, to be able to build businesses. They need, first of all, to learn how to become stewards of that money. So when you're thinking about legacy, don't only think about what you're going to leave to them as far as monetarily and financially, but also being a steward and understanding how to value that money and how to use that money.
That is really interesting perspective, and I've never really heard anybody talk about it quite that way. I know legacy can mean so many things. Even
Was it weird?
No, it was actually really cool. I'm even thinking as an adult I have parents. I lost my dad in February, and while he was still living, my dad was very adamant that I want to enjoy this with you while I'm here. And I'm so grateful that he did that, because we didn't know we would lose him as early as we did. And I think about, just what you said was just really impactful for me personally. And I think everybody listening, there are so many ways that you can look at legacy. So I'm grateful that you expanded upon that.
There's 2 points I really need to hit on that because that's important. Because I know there are people out there that have millions of dollars in their account. They're living the scarcity mindset and they're waiting to pass away and to then give it to their kids. Take a step back and maybe enjoy it with your children. Maybe try to give it, like I know somebody here who has a grandfather who has millions of dollars, and he's at the point where he doesn't really need it, but he's fearful and he's waiting. They're all waiting for him to die. And when he dies, they possibly will get the money. But what kind of energy is that money? Is that happy money or is that unhappy money? To me, that's really unhappy money. That's not the legacy that I want. I want to show my kids that I'm really generous with my money and generous with my time. And the reason why I'm really passionate about legacy is when my father passed away in 2007 in August, I remember being at the house. The priest was there giving last rites, and the accountant was there trying to set up the trust and the estate. And I don't want that to happen to anybody, because right there and then, the energy in that house, my mom was scared. She was fearful. She didn't know what she was doing. And it carried on after he passed away. She had those trusts for the next 20 years. So we sold the restaurant in 2020. That trust was not dissolved until end of 23, 3 more years. And I know subconsciously closing that trust to her was the energy that she had in that just to her was like, my dad is gone forever. I don't want anybody in that situation. Try to be proactive on this because it's really important to understand, to lay out your goals and what your vision is and share the vision with your family. I'm constantly sharing the vision with my kids. I've got different homes set up for them. I've got different places for them to live. I've got money put aside for them. But not only that, I want to be able to enjoy the money, and I want to be able to give them that money to alleviate some of the stresses that they have in life so they can become parents. They all want to have they all want to have big families. That's what my kids want. So if I can help them to stay at home with their children and raise their kids like we did, what else is money for? It's just a tool.
Yeah.
Let's use it for that reason. But I'm clear on that. And that's what I think everybody should do. When you stop listening to this, become clear on why you're making money and start creating a vision that you can share with your family. What does that legacy look like for you?
Yeah. Did you touch on both things? I know you said you had 2 points you wanted to make, and I'm not sure if you did both.
Yeah,
Okay.
the other one was the grandparent or the parent who's just waiting to pass away and say, I've got $72 million in the bank. When I'm dead, you can have it all. No, don't do that. Share it with them now. Create experiences with them now. If you're listening to this right now, what are 5 of the best days that you've ever had in your life? And I will guarantee you, it probably doesn't have anything to do with spending money. It probably has to do with having an experience with somebody else. And if you can think that is that important for you, then try to create experiences with people with the money that you have.
Beautiful. Gino, you have given us so much to think about and just beautiful insight. I know I told you before we even started, I love hearing how people build businesses. I know we've touched a little bit on your entrepreneurial journey and what you've done to grow that income and grow that wealth. These conversations, though, tend to be my favorite. And I really feel like you have given us so much value and understanding and perspective, and just energetically such a great episode. So thank you for coming and being willing to share with us. It's been such a great use of my time.
And thank you. And listen, continue the homeschooling. Continue to do these podcasts for yourself selfishly, because you're going to get on with so many people. You're going to learn so many different perspectives. Your lens is going to continue to grow. And as an entrepreneur, if you can grow the lens and be detached and just start listening to other people's advice and start taking advice from others who've done it, I mean, that's a gift to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And where can our listeners find out more? I know we've talked about your books. We've talked about your business. What's the best place for them to go to continue to follow along?
You can just go to jakeandgino.com. There's going to be a link in the show notes. If they want a copy of Baby Money Soldiers, an ebook, they can click the link and they can just download an ebook of Baby Money Soldiers.
Awesome, guys. And I will speak to this. It's a great book. I don't want to say it's an easy read to simplify it down, but it is very digestible, and it's a short read, but it's packed with value, and it's something I think everybody needs to read. So thanks again for sharing that with our listeners.
Thank you.
Who feels ready to go and employ some Baby Money Soldiers after this episode? I know I do. Thank you again to Gino and our other show sponsors for making today's masterclass possible. I know I learned a ton, and I'm really always excited as a mother to find ways that I can incorporate wealth and success into the principles in our family. And for me, I really love Gino's insight about happy money and the fact that there is a differentiation. There's money and there's happy money. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm in pursuit of the latter. I want all the happy money, all the happy family, and happy legacy. So regardless of the business you're building, keep that bigger picture mentality of understanding this is more than just generating income. This is about creating a lasting impact for many, many generations to come. So if you're ready to start building that business of your dreams, go check out our free resources at millionaireuniversity.com and follow along, subscribe to the show, and be sure to leave us a rating and review and let us know what you loved about today's episode. Until the next one, class is dismissed.